Hello and welcome to the Summer Sessions, a podcast where we revisit movies from our childhood. It's a show where we talk about our nostalgia behind these movies, how they got made, and just how well they hold up when rewatching them in the present day. I am one of your hosts, Nick Warner, and joining me, as always, Matthew Pelton.
Hello.
We have a really fun episode today.
This is really cool.
So today we're talking about the movie from our childhood. Classic movie, animated movie, called Robots.
Yes.
And in a little bit, you're going to hear an interview that we just filmed with our very special guest. His name is Ron Mita. And I say it in the clip, but Ron is one of the creators of the movie. He's a writer.
He's the freaking creator of Robot. Dude, we got the guy who made it.
Dude, it's awesome. And we had a wonderful conversation with him, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, he's such
but
a
first
cool
things
dude.
first, how has the past week been for you?
A little catch up.
Yeah, give me the rundown.
Past week has been awesome and crazy at the same time.
Me too.
Yeah, because I'm sure yours is more eventful. Mine's just like trying to get stuff done. But still, rough cut for the movie we shot, Please Don't Look the Psychedelic Toad. Almost done, fully.
Yes.
Which has been
I
great.
still have to watch the thing you sent me.
Yeah, I always said, Nick, like, when I finish a scene, I'm like, Nick, check it out. And he's like, I'll get back to you in, like, 7 weeks. So
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
That's that Disney life, baby.
I said that stuff, so that's been going on. And I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing mostly for the summer, because I have the remote editing internship. And then, so, shocking news, is Memorial Day weekend. I was with a bunch of friends. And keep in mind, I got the remote editing internship, and no other internship got back to me. If they did, it was a no. So I've fully written those out in my head. It's pretty much just like, hey, where am I going to go, and what am I going to do for a job? So I've been looking at, like, Airbnbs. Like, now I'm looking at, like, North Carolina. I'll just go live in a tiny little shack and work at a record store.
Dude, do it up.
Yeah, I'm like an 80-year-old man trying to go retire. But sure enough, it was, like, Saturday morning, and I got an email from the Boston Public Health Commission. BPHC, which I didn't know what that was. And they wanted to do an interview for a video content curation internship.
Oh.
But keep in mind, this is one I applied to in December.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so they got back to me in late May. And I almost like was a little disappointed because I'm like, I'm going to North Carolina. I can't do a Boston internship.
Yeah.
So I haven't had the interview yet, so I haven't even gotten it. But now there's two possibilities of either I'm going off to do some weird, kooky adventure, or I'm going to have a second internship and go back to Boston. Lord knows. So my whole week has been trying to figure out what's going on.
I was going to say, that seems like it's going to be a crazy schedule once you get one of those going.
Either way, it's going to be sick, but I just...
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Hopefully people listen to the next episode and I'll have answers.
That's why we do this.
Exactly.
It's for the audience, but I also like to think it's for us because
it's mostly for us.
Maybe because we can take a look back because what I'm about to tell you, I am hoping that I look back on this and I giggle about it because I'm terrified.
No!
I started my training, which last episode I teased.
No training sequences.
No training sequences. We'll get into that later. You'll hear about that from Ron. But I teased that I got my position, my job switched at Disney, but I ended up never saying what it was. We totally just moved on and just didn't come back to it.
Oh, every time Nick talks about Disney, I just black out.
Oh, nice.
Didn't even notice.
So as officially, I'm working at an attraction called Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Okay. Which is awesome because it's like a total upgrade from when I was working.
Nice.
But it's an attraction, and I've never worked an attraction before. And this one specifically has no tracks. It's a trackless ride vehicle, and it's all computer operated. So you have to imagine that the training that I'm going through right now is insane.
It's pretty
intense. Safety critical. It's like the most complex ride that we have here, other than a different one. It's like the second or third most complex on property. Okay. And I've never done attractions before. So I went in yesterday for like my first like official, quote unquote,
training
day,
session. Yeah.
At the actual ride. So I had like a Hollywood Studios like overview, walkthrough. It was very fun.
Yeah.
But this one, I started my training, and they were just spitting out all these terms that I had never heard before. And I felt like an idiot because I was like, hey, I don't mean to like stop you because I know that we only have like 15 minutes left to get all this stuff done, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
So you're gonna kill someone. That's what I'm hearing.
No, well, maybe. I have the next 4 days, so I have Thursday, Friday, Saturday of like training, and then Sunday's my assessment.
Oh,
and then if
so
I
like
pass my assessment, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
But if I don't pass, then I have to go back into training and do more training. So I'm hoping I pass. Most of the time, everyone passes, but I'm getting really worried just because my brain was like just scrambled eggs last night. I mean, to be fair, I worked almost 9 hours, but not that that's like a ton. But
was it just 9 hours of straight training?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
and
that's
it's gonna be
brutal.
like that for the next 4 days. And I work. So I work 10 to 6 tomorrow, and then the next 3 days after that, including my assessment day, it's 5:45 in the morning until 2:15 in the afternoon.
Oh my god!
That's including on my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thank you. In 3 days, but yeah, it's on my birthday. I'm working 5:45 in the morning, which means I have to get up at like 4.
Yeah, just get ready,
and then like perform actual tasks and communicate and make sure people don't die on the ride.
And don't kill anyone.
Exactly. But so yesterday we were in this little area called Tower, which basically has a bunch of it's like 12 computer screens, and it's just all the visuals of the ride. So you see everything that's going on. Which is really
every
cool.
Single angle and all that.
But it means that you basically control everything, and so it's like a big responsibility.
This is horrifying.
And so what we had, I'll quickly go over this because it's a lot. We had what was called an automatic emergency stop, which means that something happened and the ride stopped processing. It fully shut down. The work lights came on. Ooh. Everyone had to be evacuated. Like people had to get off the ride. I think it was just a malfunction.
Okay.
Something. We were closing anyway, so it was like the last run through.
Oh, it was whatever.
But me being, first day on the job, I had my trainer behind me. But the thing about the computer screen room, the tower, you have to keep your eyes on the computers or else you can get in trouble. Because if you look away, then technically it's like a safety hazard.
Yeah, because no one's watching.
It's crazy because I love looking people in the eye when I talk to them. And it freaks me out when I have to talk to someone and I'm just not looking at them.
You're not allowed to even look at them?
Yeah, so the auto e-stop happened and I was shitting my pants. Because every alarm went off. I had to hit a bunch of buttons. I had to call people. And then it was just, it was a nightmare. But it was like a fun nightmare. So I'm excited to learn about it. I'm just nervous. For my assessment. So hopefully the next time you all hear from me, I'll have passed my assessment and I'll feel much better about this.
Or you'll be in prison.
Or I'll be in Disney jail, which is the Magic Kingdom.
My guess.
You didn't hear that from me. Yeah. Also, we mentioned this before recording, but I'm not... Last time we were recording, I was in my bed because I didn't have anywhere to sit because there's no desks in here. And now I have my desk. I have my weird rolly desk.
Okay.
And I stole a chair from the kitchen.
Did you
now
really?
I'm just sitting in the middle of my room with my desk not where it's supposed to be, with this chair from the kitchen just all set up.
Just for us.
Just for us. But yeah, glad to hear you're doing well. I like that we do this. This is fun. It's
we'll
a nice
catch up.
especially because we're not living together.
Well, yeah, just so people know, when we did season 1, we obviously lived together.
Mm-hmm.
But for summer sessions, again, we're in different states. And especially Nick, but we're both so busy. You just heard Nick's story. We're at 9. It got back at 11 at night last night.
Yeah.
That we really don't get to catch up until we're on this show.
It's like business talk, if any talk.
If any talk at all.
Exactly.
I'll get a hold of you and be like, hey, did you find a clip for the Instagram? And here's Psychedelic Toe stuff. Okay, I'll see you when we record.
Yeah, or you'll get a hold of me and be like, holy shit, I got you on the phone?
Yeah, that's true. I think I did say that.
I was at the gym, and you were like, no way, I was not expecting this.
I was because every time I call you at this point, I have a whole voicemail prepared in my head.
Yeah.
So when you picked up,
right.
I was like,
because it's half the time I'm at work and being on stage
busy.
at Disney, you just can't. You can if you pull your phone, you're done. They shoot you.
Yeah, when Nick.
No, I'm kidding. I do not speak on behalf of the Walt Disney Company, and that's not what happens. That was a total joke.
Wink, wink.
If I get fired for this podcast, I swear to God.
We get fired for robots. When Nick is at Disney, if you're also not at Disney, there's no Nick. You don't get Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if
not even Maddie. Maddie doesn't even get Nick.
I'm sure. Yeah, no one gets Nick.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There's really no Nick.
No.
So if you have a Nick question, You gotta suck it up, I'm afraid.
You got to go to my agent.
Yeah, I have my people reach out to your people for stuff like this. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. So I guess we can kind of move into childhood stories about robots.
About robots.
Do you want to start?
I think I started first last time, so I'm gonna say you.
Okay, I'll start. I always figure I'd offer.
I appreciate it. It's very kind.
This is yeah. This is a big one for me. This is like this is a massive one, which is why if we could have gotten a guest for any episode,
it's this one.
As big as this one, it's this one. Because, dude, you know how I used to say, or I guess I still do. I used to, we would drive to Pittsburgh for Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that stuff, and we'd have the little portable TVs.
Yes.
We had this one on DVD, and I think I watched this one more than I watched any of them.
Really?
Like, I watched this so many times, it's unbelievable. Like, a little peek behind the curtain for everyone listening. Pelton called me earlier and was like, "Hey, I'm ready to go when you are," right before we talked to Ron.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I have to admit, I'm still watching the movie. Because I've just been so busy, I haven't gotten a chance to kind of revisit it. But as I was watching it, I was like, oh, dude, I know this like the back of my hand. And there is a back of my hand joke in the movie. Like, that back of my hand joke, I used to say, like, just to my friends, because I would quote this movie.
Like, oh, that's
like,
new.
it was, it was like insane. Some of the Robin Williams lines in this movie, I was like, I would just say out loud to my friends. Like, it's insane how much. Exactly. It's crazy how much this movie meant to me when I was younger.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a big one. This might be my most nostalgic movie.
It's number one.
It might be.
That's
so far,
wild.
It's crazy.
I have
a very strong attachment.
Yeah, apparently. I say my only connection with this movie is I know I watched it as a kid, but I weirdly have no memory of the actual movie itself. My only memory with this movie is sitting downstairs right now because I'm in the attic of my old childhood house. I don't live here anymore, but I always come here to film because it's just quiet. So I'm in the attic, but if you go downstairs where all our DVDs are, we had the DVD of Robots. And I can picture that so clear. I know what the back of it looks like, the front of it, even the DVD itself. But I have no memory of the actual movie.
That's wild.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I know everything about this movie just came back immediately.
No way.
It's crazy.
That's
when
wild.
we were like, oh, we got Ron. I was like, oh.
Yeah, my childhood hero.
My hero. So that's why if you guys hear the conversation, if I sound a little nervous, it's because I was not like terrified, but I was like, dude, this guy has no idea.
Even I was a little nervous.
He's so cool too. I'm so glad that we talked to him.
He was such a cool dude. Oh, that was I love the fact that I called so many people in my life because obviously my friends listen to Greenlit.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, what movie are you doing next week? And I was like, Robots. And I was like, do you want to guess who we got as a special guest? And like, what, is Jonah coming back? Or like Stewart or something? I'm like, we got the fucking writer of Robots. And they're like, what the fuck? They're like, how? What the fuck? That's wild.
Thank you, Aldous.
Yeah, God bless Aldous. Should we kind of explain how we got the writer?
Yeah, so Aldous is one of our friends from Emerson.
Yeah.
Who graduated, I believe, last year?
I believe so.
Something like that?
Yeah, I think at the end of our sophomore year, he graduated.
Yeah, I don't know if he's doing graduate school or if he's just taking classes. But he's taking classes at a college that Ron is a professor at. And he did his screenwriting class. And then eventually he had him on his podcast, on Aldous' podcast.
Yeah, shout out Come Clean podcast.
Yeah, we love him. And I watched the episode and I was like, oh my God, this is like immaculate timing because we were starting the summer sessions and we knew we were going to cover robots in the future just because of, my attachment to it. And it was just on our list from the very beginning. It was like one of the first movies.
Yeah, it's a big one on the list.
And so I reached out to Aldous. Aldous gave me Ron's contact and the rest is history. But yeah, it was awesome to speak to him.
Yeah, that was probably one of the coolest guests we'll ever have on the history of this show.
Yeah. But yes, you forgot everything.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about this movie whatsoever. I knew what the main guy looked like. That was it.
I remember everything, but I didn't realize the actual voice cast because this thing
it's loaded.
is stacked.
It is.
Let me just let me just pull up just to give you guys an idea. So we have Robin Williams, who I remembered the most, but then we also have Ewan McGregor,
Yep.
Mel Brooks, Jennifer Coolidge, Halle Berry, Stanley Tucci, Amanda Bynes, I think is her name.
Really? She's in this?
Yeah, she's Piper, the sister.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and then even like James Earl Jones lends his voice in like there's like a little Star Wars section.
Oh, yeah.
Jay Leno's in this thing. He's the
Yeah.
fire hydrant in the very beginning.
Emerson alum.
That's crazy. Al Roker is in this. There's just like the list goes on and on. It's like absolutely ridiculous.
It's a stacked cast.
Yeah, it's incredible. But so I guess we can kind of move into production a little, just because a lot of the production
Is with Ron.
I guess kind of the backstory is in this interview. So I guess other than the stuff we talked about there, this movie I believe was released. I know he said 2003, but
I thought it was 2005.
It's 2005. I'm pretty sure. Regardless, it came out right around then. It was produced by Blue Sky and distributed by 20th Century Fox.
Now, is Blue Sky still around?
Let me check. Blue Sky. Nope, that's just a picture of a blue sky. Studios, how about?
Did you really just
Last
Google Blue
movie.
Sky?
Yeah, I don't know why I thought that was gonna come about. Blue Sky's final film came out in 2019.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. I don't know what happened. The last one was Spies in Disguise. I don't know. I don't know if it shut down or if that was just his most recent film.
Okay, I gotcha. You can't find like an official end date?
No. There's yeah, wow. Blue Sky had released 13 feature films, which were all released by 20th Century Fox. Wow, so they had like a little...
there you go. Little
like,
partnership.
yeah. Before its closure on April 10th, 2021.
Oh, there you go. So they did close.
And an interesting fact, this movie is the second of Blue Sky's productions ever.
Oh, really? This is number 2. Oh, because first one was Ice Age, right?
Ice Age.
Yeah, good start.
I meant to bring this up in the conversation with Ron, but it's the same director. Oh, no way.
Yeah,
so you guys will hear a little bit about this in the conversation. Something along the lines of they had kind of passed on robots for Ice Age, and then they revisited robots and made robots. But same director. His name's Chris Wedge.
So Chris Wedge is like this weird staple in all of our childhoods almost.
Exactly, and I'm pretty sure
he's like a better Robert Rodriguez.
Never a better Robert Rodriguez. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, he definitely is. And I guess he does the voice apparently for Wonderbot. The little...
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I could be wrong about that. That's just on the Google, but I you never know. Yeah, and then a guy by the name of John Powell did the score, and he did a lot of animated films that we're going to cover on this show.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what... So he's done, I think, all of the How to Train Your Dragon movies.
Oh, no shit.
He's done the Bourne movies, the Ice Age movies.
Oh, so he doesn't just do like childhood animated
Happy Feet,
stuff.
Robots, Kung Fu Panda, like a lot of
wait.
Rio,
So
Horton Hears a Who, Chicken
does-
Run, The Lorax, Bolt, Shrek.
He's done all of these child animated films, and then he did the Bourne movies? What the
I think
hell?
all of them too.
What happened?
I don't know if he's obviously I don't know if he's the main composer or if
But
he
he's
just
like
helped
one of. Yeah, that's
with,
true. That's
yeah,
true.
yeah. But that is very funny.
That's awesome.
And again, this was kind of touched on in the conversation with Ron, but the budget of this film was between $75 and $80 million.
Okay,
There's not a real like exact budget, but it grossed $262 million.
So make
which
quite
for
a
that
good
budget
amount.
it was really good, and it was pretty well received. But yeah, so without further ado, our conversation with Ron starts now. Welcome back to the show. We are here with a very special guest, Ron Mita. Ron is the writer of, or I guess one of the writers.
One of the writers. There's several, but yeah.
Yes.
But the creator of the
creator. There you go.
Yeah. The main guy.
There you go. But yeah, so I guess we were kind of just talking about this, but yeah, I personally have had very heavy nostalgia behind this movie and really kind of grew up with it. So in this part of the episode, we kind of go over, how the production process was, or kind of how the movie got made. And because we haven't had access to a person this close to the movie on the show yet, we kind of just go off the Wikipedia notes. So,
Oh yeah, I don't even know what's on
yeah,
the Wikipedia thing. Um, but yeah, well, I can give you. You know, it's funny you say the production. I can give you the pre-production development
pre-production.
part.
Yeah,
Obviously, the animation I know nothing about. Never saw
right.
those people and such, and that's actually not interesting compared to how the story came to be anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we would love to know like where the idea kind of came
yeah,
from, how the
so
ball kind of got started rolling on this.
yeah. Well, it's fascinating that this fits into the wheelhouse, but it is funny. I think we made this in 2003. I'm trying to remember the year, but I'm pretty sure it was 2003 when it came out. We did our work in 1999. It takes
Oh,
forever
wow.
for animation to get done.
Yeah.
So years before the film comes out, and it's funny because I teach screenwriting and filmmaking, and I was teaching when the film came out, and I'm like to all my students who are your age, but this is back then. And I'm like, hey, I got a new movie out in the theaters, and it's and they're like, oh, it's an animated children's movie, so they weren't that excited about it.
Mhm.
But now, 20 years later, they're all your age,
Right.
and so these are young adults like yourself who came up watching the movie, grew up on the movie, saw it mostly in video, some in the theaters, and so over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, as my students enroll in my class, they're like so excited to talk about robots. I mean, it cracks me up because it's like, we didn't talk about this movie for 15 years, and now this group, it's their movie. So I love it. It's very exciting. So when guys like yourself talk about it nostalgically, it makes me realize, holy cow, the movie's already 20 years old. But more so that you're in that age group that came up on this film,
Right.
and amongst others, and it did speak to a lot of kids. So I just got off track, but so throw some questions at me and I'll see what I can help you with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of the first things first, starting from the very beginning, where did the idea come from? Like, was it
So this is
just,
actually, yeah,
yeah.
good story. We went to 20th Century Fox, to their animation department, to pitch a story. I was working with a special effects company that really wanted to make a movie. They're called Hammerhead, and they do all sorts of special effects for other films. And they said, hey, we want to make a movie. So we came up with this idea about giant bugs, some kind of like nuclear something, or I can't remember what it was, causes bugs in a farm in a small town to just become gigantic. And the idea was that they could animate bugs really well because they have hard shells, and animation, especially back then, needed hard surfaces, which leads up to why robots are such good things to animate. But so we go in and we pitch this story about giant bugs, and you could just tell, glazed faces, not interested. And that's fine. That's the life of a writer, pitching stories that nobody gives a damn about. But the people at Fox, Chris Meledandri and some others, liked what we were pitching. They liked our storytelling sense, and they said, well, we've got something for you to take a peek at, because we don't know what we're going to do with this. It's a written script. So I said, okay, exciting. There's nothing better than when an executive hands you something and says there's a possibility here. So we took it home and read it. Now you would recognize the script because it was ultimately made. We read, well, totally blanking out on this, Ice Age. The story, and it wasn't Ice Age. Maybe it had the name, I don't recall, but it was literally the screenplay for Ice Age as the movie was made. And they weren't sure what to do with it. And so we kind of came back and said, well, what if we set this movie on a planet where it's inhabited by robots? It's a robot planet. I don't know how it became that, but it just is. But there have been some humans crash land, and everyone is killed in the spaceship except this baby. And the robots find this human baby. And remember, think of the Mastodon, think of the characters from Ice Age, only now they're robots. And they find this human baby, and they realize they need to get it back to the humans who are on the other side of the planet. And we just need to and so they take this robot, they take this human as they go through and they go across the lands, and there's like some evil robots who don't like human beings, and so on and so forth. And ultimately they return it to the humans. And And so we went back in a couple of weeks after reading the script, and we pitched it, and they really liked that. But they said in the time that we had been gone, they decided to go ahead with Ice Age and make it as is, which is great. It's a terrific film.
Mhm.
So I was like, all right, well, again, you swing and strike out quite a bit in Hollywood, and but they said, but we really do like the robots thing, and we are working with this artist named William Joyce. Now, you guys might also remember William Joyce's work, besides the fact that he's the designer of robots, but he had a TV show when you were younger called Roly Poly Oly. It was a Disney Channel film. If you Google it, you'll probably remember the visuals.
Heard of it.
Amongst other stuff. A wonderful children's author. He's actually an author of children's books and just a really cool artist. He has all his artwork is very much like 1936 World's Fair kind of look, like the future if it was just a little bit different.
Mhm.
So he's got this wonderful design, and they said, we really want to do something with robots. And because they'd already kind of been in business with them, and you guys are already talking robots, so let's see what we can do together. So we never met physically with him, but we did talk with him. We had a conference calls. There were no Zooms then, and we chatted with him. And so we went away and we said, okay, let's come up with a really good story that the studio is going to love. And I am a big fan of the Three Musketeers. And it's just one of the best stories, and and if you ever get a chance to read the actual book, it's a super easy read. It's as entertaining as any of the versions of the movie you've ever seen. So I said, well, let's not bust our ass in this. Let's just make the Three Musketeers with robots. It's going to be about a country robot who comes to the big city, and he wants to be part of the big city life. And when he gets there, the city is overwhelming, and ultimately he wants to see, well, if you remember the Three Musketeers, the king is being usurped by the cardinal in the Three Musketeers. And our version is like, okay, so he comes to the big city, it's chaotic, and he's looking to meet the big weld character, but only to find out that he has been usurped by this evil character, which initially we called the Archon. And then he falls in with these bunch of broken down old robots who used to be the king's guard. And so essentially we came up with this wonderful story, this action adventure film about the Three Musketeers. Now, so we developed it that way with the studio. And to this day, when you watch the movie, it is the Three Musketeers. If you think about Rodney Copperbottom as a country robot who comes to the city, he finds this ragtag, broken down robots. Everything in the city is being crushed and torn up, and they're trying to make the city gleaming and new, and they're trying to destroy all the old robots. And we have the cardinal, who is there in the form of the character, oh my god, I'm forgetting his name, but and we have Big Weld, who is essentially was the king. So it's the Three Musketeers. That's basically what it is. So we developed that, wrote that, went through many meetings and versions of that story. And at its heart, that is what it is. William Joyce did some artwork for us, which I don't know if you've ever. It's out there somewhere. No one actually. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the original artwork, but there's some pretty cool imagery out there.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're definitely gonna check that out. That's incredible.
I had no idea. It's also just the Three Musketeers is kind of
Yeah.
transferred with robots.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the genesis of it came about. And then, the process of writing an animated film, you read it, it's not that much different from writing an actual screenplay. The format's the same. It just tends to be a little bit shorter. And we originally wrote it. So the original version of what we wrote is a lot darker than what was made, very much darker. We were angling, we really wanted to do more of a teenager, not teenager, but something, I don't know, maybe a little more Treasure Planet than what ultimately I think became more of a children's movie, which is fine. It totally spoke to you guys. So there's an original outline floating around out there as well that tells you the actual story that we wrote, which was a pretty intense sci-fi adventure, which in itself nowadays would probably be a CGI. So somewhere in our mind it was a little more Blade Runner.
Wow.
And not as childish and friendly, not as tough. But William Joyce does write very colorful children's stuff. So, you know, that was us forgetting who we were, what we were writing, and saying, hey, let's really try to get them animated Blade Runner. And
Now, when did that kind of change from this more?
well, I changed it like the first couple of meetings where it's like, yeah, this is kind of dark, what you've written, and over the top, and so we had to take it back a notch and remember that the characters are very colorful and silly. When we wrote the characters, it's funny, we did envision Robin Williams.
Oh, you did? I was about to ask.
Yeah, and that's funny.
From
That's
the
happened to me a
beginning.
couple times when I've written a movie that I envision an actor, and then it actually gets cast in the movie. That happened to me in the movie SWAT. We wrote for LL Cool J, and then they ended up casting him in the
So
movie.
cool.
So it is kind of neat when that happens. It's like, okay, obviously you saw what I saw. In this case, we did write for Robin Williams. I don't recall that we certainly didn't pick anyone else out. You know, Ewan McGregor was certainly not on my. I love him, but it wasn't
Okay.
like I'm writing for Ewan McGregor. It's kind of a. I mean, he's kind of like the straight man in this thing, you know. So, at any rate, so we, you know, we wrote multiple outlines, multiple story outlines, trying to bring it down from the kind of the dark Blade Runner world that it started in, and then turn it into something that was childlike and fun and friendly. After we wrote it, it was written. Everything gets rewritten in Hollywood, and ultimately they brought in two guys who are Broadway writers, David Lindsay Abaire. Again, I'm looking at the names, and to punch it up. In the end, it has a lot of like shtick. It almost feels like it was written in the end by like, you know, two old Jewish vaudeville kind of guys, you know. But the process started, like I said, being kind of a darker, more serious film than it ultimately ended. Initially Rodney Copperbottom's name was Dart, and that was short for D'Artagnan. Again, if you recall your Three Musketeers, D'Artagnan was the country boy who comes to become a robot. Ultimately, when they moved away from any reference to Three Musketeers,
Right.
Dart became Rodney Copperbottom.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
And as you'll notice, the names became kind of pun names. You know, Copperbottom, Big Weld. You know.
Yeah.
We initially, our characters had more kind of science fiction-y kind of names. So we did we wrote the idea, we came up with it, we refined it down. Yes, the darker kind of Blade Runner-esque version kind of turned into the happy, shiny children's version. It's still, when it left our hands, it's still probably a little bit darker, definitely darker than it ended up being. So ultimately in Hollywood, as a writer, you kind of just get used to the fact that you're going to they're going to move on from you at some point in time. And that was fine. We got our money. And honestly, it was too funny. Forgot about the movie because animation takes so long. So, you know, I knew they were still working on it, but I never really paid too much attention. And then I was in the movie theaters and I walked past a poster for the movie Robots. And I'm like, oh, damn it. Someone made a movie called Robots. They freaking beat us to it. And then I look at the poster. It's this poster here. And I look at the bottom and there's my name on it. I'm like, oh my God, it's my movie. So that was really, it was a really kind of funny moment in the theater, seeing a poster for a movie I had written 4 or 5 years earlier.
Wow.
So they didn't like keep you updated on production?
Honestly, no. And yes and no. I mean, I knew they were doing something with it. I knew it was moving forward. But again, honestly, animation takes forever. So I probably hadn't had a conversation on the movie for about 1.5 years at that point, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. At that point, it was funny. Just the day after that, suddenly I start getting calls from the studio and things like that because there's money to be paid to me and things like that and such. So and then, you know, and then shortly after that went to the premiere and you know, so that was kind of cool. Then it was kind of a fun. We had a premiere in Westwood, which is really in Los Angeles, which is where all the movies tend to do premieres if they don't do them in Hollywood Boulevard. It's this cool theater near UCLA. And because it was a kids movie, they set up a big carnival.
That's
it was a fun event. But yeah. So the film, like I said, it came out. To me, I understand for you guys, this is the film you saw, and you were kids, and you kind of look at it, and you're like,
Big
wow.
deal
And
for
fun.
us.
For me as the writer, I looked at it and go, oh yeah, it was fun. And my kids were little at the time; they're about your age, a little bit, tiny bit older, so they were excited about it. But for me, I was hoping for like literally like gritty ass Blade Runner,
Sure.
dark sci-fi with robots. And if you get it, and if you ever find the treatment, you'll see it is it's a really good treatment. It's
Yeah.
dark and yeah, and tells kind of a different story. It's the same story, but a lot darker.
Just
Lot
dark.
darker.
And a longer movie too. Yeah.
Now, how often, by the way, does it happen where you will complete a treatment or a script, and the studio will take it and then get other writers to come in and kind of redo
In
it?
Hollywood, almost every movie, almost every time.
Really?
Hmm.
Yeah. And you got to get thick skin. They're so unsure of themselves, these executives. They're so like, I don't know, is this good? I don't know. Let's spend a couple $1 million and get some more people to write it, And so they're constantly rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. And you learn to accept it. What happens in the end is then they arbitrate for credit, and you're lucky if you get on there as credited, and I'm obviously on there as credited. We did the original story, myself and my writing partner Jim McLean, and so there was no way we would ever get pushed out of the credits, but you could. I mean, I know several writers who never got credited for writing drafts of movies and such. So it's a tough spot when you're a writer, because they're going to bring in so many writers, and they shouldn't, because ultimately a lot of films you see, you go, wow, that's kind of like overdeveloped. And sometimes it feels like so many writers were involved, because
Too many cooks in the
the
kitchen.
characters like, where's their voice? And what happens, here's the clue that more than one writer has been involved. Something is set up, like we put a gun under the table, and then it like never pays off in the movie, because what happened is the first writer put the gun under the table. The second writer forgot to remove that gun from under the table in the script. And so later on it makes it into the movie, and you're like, what was the point of the gun under the table? Like, it's literally, they forgot to edit it out of the story, and it got into the film somehow. And that's a bad example, but you'll notice it in films, like things that don't pay off.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
the sure sign that one writer did not carefully remove
Huh.
all parts of the setup, and therefore screwed up the payoff. So
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I ever really put that together, and now it's going to change how I see
I know.
continuity.
yeah, when you start to
Payoff
analyze
issues.
films, and especially the big, okay, let's put it this way: this is for the big action films, the big box office films. That's where they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
The independent world doesn't have the money to hire numerous writers, so that's why you
Right.
tend to get a better screenplay, because one person kind of is on there from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And the studio world, at the end of the day, they're not trying to win an Academy Award for Best Picture. Although this one, I think they just started doing Best Picture animated around this year. Maybe it was a year or two later. Maybe I just felt like it wasn't nominated for anything, to my knowledge. But I think if it had been made later, a few years later, it would have been nominated for Best Animated Film.
Okay.
It was probably the most successful animated film of that year,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but it did very well. The box office was quite good on this.
Yeah, I do some research. We're gonna get into this after we let you go, but yeah, it did well at the box office. People liked it. I obviously loved it. I actually had a quick question about I guess pre-production, because obviously as the person who comes up with the story, are you super hands-on in pre-production? Is it more just like the producers?
So
kind of do
writers are only hands-on in development.
Right.
If you think of the 5 stages of filmmaking, development precedes pre-production. Pre-production is when there's a green light to go.
Yeah.
And at the pre-production phase, writers are not terribly involved. I would say the dialogue puncher up guys are still involved. The guys who are like, but, and remember, this is animated, so they really need that script locked in well before they get into production. And so writers in animated films tend to be more involved in the development phase only,
Right.
and then a little bit in pre-production. I was not involved when they actually got the green light to go forward.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So I doubt any writer was very involved, other than tweets. Also, the director of this, Chris Wedge, is a creative guy himself.
Mhm.
He's done some great animated work and a talented guy. So there's no doubt that he could rewrite on the fly if they needed to for a scene just to make things work. I did learn a lot of interesting things about animation in this film, but also on another one because I'm working on an animated version of The Wizard of Oz with some French animation people.
Oh, no way.
Very cool.
And yeah, because The Wizard of Oz is in the public domain, so we're making the original version, the book version, not the Warner Brothers version.
Okay.
But without going too deep into that, what I did learn, and this had to do with the robot again, was in animation, you do have to work with the animators at times because there's laws of physics
Mhm.
that are involved in how a character moves. And sometimes you need to write it in. And the point I'm making in the Wizard of Oz version, our Tin Man is tiny. He's about this big because he's a munchkin. Because if you read the book, and I know I'm getting off topic here, but it's still a children's
please.
movie that you probably grew up on.
Yeah.
If you read The Wizard of Oz, the it is basically that the Tin Man was a munchkin. He fell in love with the munchkin girl. The munchkin girl's mother didn't like him. She asked the witch to enchant him, and he kept cutting off parts of his arms and he'd get covered with metal. So he was a munchkin who became. So when we read it, we're like, hey, that means the Tin Man is like, like a hobbit, right? He's tiny.
Yeah.
So we wrote our Tin Man as tiny. And the animators came back to us and said, okay, that's a problem because he can't move as fast as the other characters when they're going down the Yellow Brick Road.
Oh, yeah.
Someone who's got a tiny little robot step can't. And I'm like, I'd never thought of that, but that was an interesting point going back to animation about pre-production, in that the animators said, we can't make it move at the same speed that we can make a human being move. What are you going to do about that? I'm like, well, I ain't going to do anything about it. But it's not like, this is the only time I've ever had an animator tell me, you got to do something about this. Because generally speaking, I don't think that the animators would just figure out how to fix it.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Sweet. So have you, I'm assuming naturally you read like a final copy of the script
Of robots.
Yes.
I did see what was probably going to be the production draft, and we saw. I mean, they're not obligated to do it, but I know that someone probably gave it to us, and we saw it somewhere, and it was fine. It's fine. Again, the problem as the original writer on anything, there's no movie I've had made where it's the movie I wrote in my mind.
Yeah, every time.
And the studios make changes, and a lot of time they make changes and they don't talk to you, and so that you could sit there and kind of at least have a little bit of an argument, about it would be cooler if you went this way or you stayed with this thought. The film, so Robots came out, I would say, 80% of what I wanted, which is good, right? My biggest movie is SWAT, which is, and that one, they made several changes that were kind of annoying to me, because it almost felt like they didn't understand story structure. In that particular film, the act break, which is about 30 minutes into a film, where the big news about this is what the movie's about. We're going on an adventure. We're going over the rainbow, right? We're going, and they didn't understand. In that movie, it was about a bad guy who got captured and by the cops, and he announces, I will give $100 million to everyone who gets me out of prison. And Los Angeles becomes kind of a insane killing field of bad guys trying to get this guy out of prison.
Cool idea.
It's a great idea. And that was the pitch. And that was like, yeah. And that was page 30. Because obviously at that point, boom, this story is about this.
Right.
When the studio made the movie, they moved it to the midpoint of the movie. They moved it to an hour into the film. The problem is when you go see a movie, you expect big news at 30 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah.
You've been trained this way. You guys have grown up watching movies, and about 30 minutes into any movie, there is an announcement by the movie saying, here's what this is about. This is the adventure we are going on. In The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy goes over the rainbow and she's in Munchkin Land and she has to get home. That's the movie. We know what it's about. In SWAT, it's when this guy says, I'm going to give $100 million. Well, what happened on page 30 when we wrote it got moved to page 60 when they made it. And they filled that void with training sequences. And there is nothing worse in the world in any movie than a training sequence, because you don't go to the movies to watch your guys do batting practice, right?
Right.
I guess if you're a true fan, you might go to a Red Sox game to see batting practice, but the fact is most of us roll in right around, the first pitch.
Yeah.
And so in movies, one of the best executives I've ever had, it was the executive on SWAT, said to me, I don't want training sequences and I don't want to see my SWAT team fail. And he got fired and the film moved on, and we added in a train sequence, and we added in that's 30% of the SWAT team turns out to be bad guys. It's like so they defied every rule of good filmmaking and storytelling. So the movie's fine. I like it.
Sure.
But it's just not what it could have been,
Yeah.
because people who ultimately made it did not understand story structure. And so to me, it plows on. Training sequences suck. And I see you got a Star Wars poster in your back corner over there. So I'm going to, there is a sequence. I want to say it's in Return of the Jedi. The whole Luke training with Yoda in the cave scene, that's boring as hell. and it does, what does it even mean? And then,
Right.
and then he kills Darth Vader and it's himself in there.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching that because I was fortunate to see those movies in the theater, and I'm
awesome.
like, Star Wars, and I'm loving it. And I'm like, oh my God, I should have gotten popcorn and used the bathroom during this scene. It's a training sequence.
Time filler.
So good little tip for all you writer friends or your people watching your podcast: do not write training sequences. Now, the good thing about robots, to bring it back full circle, what the hell we're talking about, there are no training sequences in that movie.
Which I sincerely appreciated, because a lot of the movies that we have covered, we've done like live action and animated. But recently, we've been going more into animated. And a lot of them, surprisingly enough, have training sequences for whatever reason.
Almost every single one.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that? What?
Say almost every single one we've covered has some
Yeah,
sort of training
yeah.
sequence in it.
Oh, I want you to kind of carry this thought when you watch movies moving forward, and you're like, oh my God, that's a freaking training sequence.
Yeah.
What's wrong with a training sequence? There's no jeopardy. It's a training sequence. And we go to movies to see people in jeopardy, to see people, every moment's got to be an uh-oh moment, right? We need new information. There's no new information in a training sequence. Like, oh, he might fail the training sequence, in which case this movie's going to get slower, So yeah, we don't do training sequences. Remember that, writers.
Good rule.
Yeah. Can I ask you guys what some of your favorite films you've reviewed thus far are?
Ooh. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think this has been up there for sure, because this was always kind of like our white whale of this show.
Yeah.
But Chicken Little is pretty high on my list.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Surf's Up too. We just did it last week.
Okay.
That was a good one too.
For me, I think other than those two, Over the Hedge was pretty good.
Okay.
I enjoyed that. And I can kind of speak on behalf of both of us. Our least favorite movie that we've covered is the live action Cat in the Hat.
Oh.
Oh yeah. That was I have, it's funny. I have been disappointed. I grew up on Dr. Seuss books, and for me as a kid, the Grinch was a Christmas routine, and even you guys, everyone grows up on the Grinch cartoon.
Yeah,
not the live action,
right?
The old cartoon, yeah.
And I've never seen, in my opinion, a very good adaptation of a Dr. Seuss book. They've never captured the whimsical, lighthearted nature of a Dr. which is, a simple book that takes just a few seconds to read, So I've always had to. Now it's interesting though, the titles you're telling me, and again, I got to remember you're from a different age group. You're not going very far back in time. Do you guys have any movies that precede your birth? That basically do you go back in time? I mean, we talked about The Wizard of Oz, but are there other films that?
We have some on the list, but we haven't covered them yet because it's a weekly show and we started it so recently that it just kind of hasn't come up yet. But I'm sure we'll get there.
Well, here's my. I just want to throw this out to you: is that you're going to find if you go back in time, if you go to the 70s and the 60s, you're going to find that children's movies were a lot darker, and by that nature, I kind of think a lot more fun because they were creepy. I think. The one, literally one of my favorite movies of all times is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original one, the Gene Wilder one.
Yeah,
thank God, because the new one.
Yeah, no, I can't even watch the other one. It's creepy as
oh my God!
But Gene Wilder in that movie is either lovable or about this far from being a murderer. And he's. I don't know that there's ever been a performance as wonderful as that, just as maniacal and crazy. And if you guys remember the chocolate tunnel scene, and I mean,
It's creepy.
it is a creepy, dark movie, and kids can't resist it because we liked being scared as kids. When you were little, you were scared of being scared, but you liked it too. You liked that titillation of, oh my God. And so that one is just, in my opinion, you need to talk about that one of these weeks.
I was gonna say, yeah, that we can
On
add
the
that to the
list,
list for
yeah.
sure.
It definitely brings out a lot of emotions in a lot of people. And then there's another one I want you to, if you haven't seen it, I want you to watch it because it has the most terrifying character in the history of children's movies. And this is Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Have you guys ever watched the movie?
Yes.
I
Yes.
forgot
And there's a
about that
character
movie.
called the child catcher,
Yes.
Uh-huh.
who goes around kidnapping children because children are illegal in this town. And I later on just watch a clip of it on YouTube, and you will have nightmares. I remember seeing that movie as a kid, and I was freaking terrified of the child catcher. And he had this long nose, and he had a net, and he would tempt kids with candy.
Mhm.
Delightfully creepy. And that's the problem, though, I think, is a lot of the films that we've made in these last 2 decades they're a little bit less creepy. I think we're afraid of scaring little kids.
Yeah, because that would never be made now.
No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't. And even well, obviously, when they made Willy Wonka, they didn't cut off chickens' heads in the chocolate tunnel or do all those weird things. But you need to do that because little kids are looking for edge, Yeah, and I feel like we're raising children who are like, oh, I don't want to see anything scary. It's like, oh, let them see some scary stuff. Let them get excited. Let them look forward to darker, scarier movies as they grow up in life.
Right. I feel like a lot of stuff now is a lot more polished. And kind of going back to the Willy Wonka thing, when I was not terribly young, but when I was younger, I learned about like not that it's real, but it's like the dark lore of Peter Pan. And that made me revisit the movie even more because I was like, oh, yeah, something about it was just, it gripped me. It was awesome.
There was a really good version of the Peter Pan, not a live action version, and I'm blanking. It was about 15, 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. British production, just outstanding, and I'm blanking on what that one was called. That one was really good. The Disney version is great. I mean, that's cute, but not as. Oh, even that Disney version was probably darker than they would make today.
Yeah, because they actually just redid it. They have a new movie.
Yeah, the live action, which I haven't seen the new live action.
I haven't seen it, but
I like dark, and like I said, so going back to robots, we were going for dark. We wanted it to be a little scarier. And I understand where they were going, especially because Blue Sky, who makes like Ice Age, they like to go for the laughs. They're a little more like the yuck kind of guys, and they're good. They make really good stuff.
Yeah.
But they made Ferdinand the Bull, which is probably a book you read when you were a kid.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they turned it into a live action, but I didn't like what they did with that one, mainly because there's not a lot of story to the movie for Ferdinand the Bull. And so they add a lot of pablum, as I call it, in there. They build in like character stories that just aren't there. So it's tough. You got
gotcha.
But again, dark. I'm advocating for darker children's movies.
Bring them back.
Yeah. Let's scare those kids.
I guess one last question before we let you go.
Yeah.
This is a very cliche question, but do you have any advice for us as college students going into the industry, writer strike, all this madness that's going on right now?
Well, the writer strike,
couple years,
it'll play itself out as it always does. Yeah. My personal take on the writer strike is it is probably more destructive than it is good, because the problem is a small group of the issues they're addressing affect a very small group. The other problem is you probably heard 98% of the writers voted to go on strike.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget, there's 11,000 people in the Writers Guild, of which 2,000 are working. So 9,000 are not. So if I'm not working and you want to go on strike, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go on strike. Let's unemploy everybody, right? So it's created that problem, and people are out there on the picket line, but nobody's working. And what happens now, though, with the next couple of months, you watch, this is when the studios use the opportunity to cancel projects. They go, there's a thing called force majeure, which is basically when you go on strike and you can avoid your contract with that. So imagine you have a deal with Sony and you're writing an animated or a live action film. They can just cancel it, and suddenly your deal's lost. So it's a dangerous thing. As far as you guys as writers, two things. One thing is you got to be writing, and you got to be writing every day. And if you're filmmakers, and I know your school is an outstanding filmmaking school, you still have to be writing, because let's say you guys make some great student films and they get some people's attention, and then you have a screening out here or whatever. Well, nowadays, online, and you get a meeting. The first thing they're going to ask when you go to that meeting, the first thing they're going to ask is, what have you written? And everyone I know who came up as a filmmaker is like, well, I didn't write anything. I got this great film. Like, great. Well, we're not going to give you a feature film to direct, So what you're going to do is basically give you an opportunity to write something and maybe direct it, or most likely write something and kind of become a writer first. So filmmakers, you better have a screenplay and a story before you go and show that film, that awesome film you made. Writers, you better have more than one screenplay, a couple. The bottom line is be writing stuff on spec all the time. Spec being, you probably learned this in your writing classes, but speculation. I'm writing for myself. I own this thing. I control this thing. And if I get it to the right people and it gets sold, then I'm in. My first script I ever sold was a spec script. I attended Loyola Marymount here in Los Angeles for graduate school for screenwriting, and wrote a spec script and ultimately sold it before I graduated, which was kind of cool to be like a professional writer before you graduate graduate school. That's awesome. But it's a spec script. So you're always writing a script on your own. So you have a piece of work, which is something that you can now barter or, sell. Here's my screenplay. But you got to be writing. You got to be writing. And part of that too is you guys are in film school. You could take screenwriting classes. But even when you get out of film school, find screenwriting classes. I teach an online screenwriting class at College of the Canyons here in Los Angeles. Well, here in Santa Clarita, we're in the suburbs of Los Angeles. And I have several students who are students at other colleges around the country, and they're just taking the class to get a different perspective, hear different sets of stories. I'm a professional writer, so I teach my class differently than maybe you'll have at some schools where it's just like a grad student or just someone who's never been produced. So I would say continue to take classes wherever you can, even if you've taken it before. Just so you stay fresh. Maybe you have some deadlines you need to make, but keep working at it, because you can't sell a screenplay you haven't written. Well, that's not true. You can sell a pitch, but it's really hard to sell a pitch. It's a lot easier for an executive to look at your screenplay and read it. Actually, he ain't going to do that. He's going to give it to the coverage department, a department that reads scripts. They're going to write a book report on it. And then he's going to look at it, and he's going to look at the last page, which basically says if it's any good. And then if it's no good, he'll look at the comments that say, and then he'll call you and say, we have several like it just in development. Love it. Love your passion, but we're passing. But maybe they'll get a good review. Maybe they'll buy it. So who knows?
Gotcha.
But just keep writing and find excuses to keep writing. That's definitely the way to go.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, Ron, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful experience.
It is my pleasure, and I'm really excited. You guys, I think you guys have found a great niche to go down this rabbit hole. But I want you to go down that rabbit hole.
We're gonna go. We're gonna go.
Let's get past your birth year, which is probably in the 2000s, and find some creepy old stuff.
Yes, definitely will.
And the other thing is to introduce your audience to some stuff that they may not know.
Yeah, that they don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, guys, take care.
All right, thank you so much. Again, thank you for joining us. Also, thank you for writing a movie that really spoke to a lot.
Yeah, please.
Oh, can I tell you one more thing real quick? Can I tell you one last thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have gotten, and I would say in the last year, maybe two, contacted by more than one person from the trans community. Really? And I thought that was fascinating. Yeah, the trans community. And I got these really nice letters, and they said, I just love this movie, and it meant so much to me as a youth. And I'm thinking, why? And they said, because if you remember in the beginning, Rodney wears hand-me-down parts. Remember the whole thing's up being interchangeable parts. And he wears his sister or his cousin's girl parts for a while. So for a short period of his life, which is literally like 30 seconds on screen, he's a female elements. And for whatever reason, at least two members of the trans community, and I think more, I bet you if you Google it, you'll find somebody talking about it, embraced the movie because it was trans forward. Now, this is 2003. I don't know that trans was really on the forefront of topics. I like to sit there and say I was very forward thinking. That wasn't the plan, but but it's nice that the movie speaks to somebody and makes them feel good about things. That is the goal of a movie like this, is to make them feel good. So if you found something in there then yeah, it was there for you, you know? And so I think that's kind of neat. I like that feeling that somebody, that it gave someone a positive feeling about themselves. So I kind of like that.
Which is very nice. Yeah,
That's my last story.
That's pretty cool.
That's a lot of fun. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right. Okay, welcome back. Just want to give another huge thanks to Ron.
Dude,
for
I love Ron
the
so much.
Wonderful time he gave
Legend.
us. And the incredible insight. I mean, like a lot of that stuff I didn't even realize was a thing.
Yeah, well, a lot of that you can't find online. Like, that's greenlit exclusive, baby.
Greenlit exclusive. You guys are lucky. So now kind of transitioning into my favorite segment of the show, the summer songs.
Woo!
It's a segment where we kind of talk about the top 5 songs that came out in the summer of the movie that we are covering.
Yes.
And yeah, this is the summer of 2005.
Now, I have a story behind this.
Yes.
So as you know, last episode was our first time ever doing summer songs, 4 summer sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know it existed, so we were kind of
Yes.
workshopping it, just playing around.
Yes.
So I had a couple people listen to that episode and then call me and be like, hey, I love the summer song segment. Like, that's so cool because you get to know a
Hell
little bit
yeah.
about, like, what's going on in that era.
Sure.
They're like, but the only thing is, you didn't know half the songs.
Yeah.
So I can't provide a lot of comments because I don't know them.
Sure.
So they're like, hey, what if you tried, Nick sends you the songs before we record so I have a chance to listen to them. So we did that this week. Nick sent me a list, I think, 2 days ago or yesterday?
Something like that.
Something
yeah.
like that. And we kind of ran into the same problem again because I listened to all 5. I didn't know a single one.
There you go.
I didn't know any. So it didn't help whatsoever.
Yeah. To be fair, but you did listen to them.
I did.
Okay, so you have sort of an idea of
Yeah, now I at least
generally.
know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna say this could also just be for the audience, so that they can go check them out and kind of get a feel for the era and like the kind of time that this movie came out. I will say this week specifically, for whatever reason, was a lot of like hip hop, like a lot of
Yes,
rap.
ton.
Like it was wild. I think all 5 were in some way or another
Some way.
hip hop.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just run through them and we can kind of just go from there. So number 5 is a song called "Let Me Hold You" from Bow Wow. And again, I haven't heard of a lot of these. The last one I was like, okay, I know 4 out of 5.
Yeah, this one was crazy.
It's crazy. No. You know what? I know number 4.
Now, before
I know.
I will say, number 5, what the fuck is a Bow Wow? Is that a band? Is that an artist? What is that?
Never. To be fair, I haven't heard of the person who did this song, the number 4, but I have heard
either.
the song.
I hadn't.
Yeah, number 4 is a song called "Lose Control." Now this by an artist named Missy Elliott.
Yes.
Now I've never heard of Missy. However, I've heard this song before, and let me say, when this song comes on, I get real excited. I
Really?
get kind of hyped to this. Yeah,
No
yeah.
way.
It's a fun one. It's a
To
fun
Missy Elliott, your favorite artist.
to Missy Elliott. Yeah. I don't know
Big
who that
fan.
is, but yes, huge fan. So number 3 is "Don't Funk with My Heart," and funk
Great
is spelled
title.
PHUNK from the Black Eyed Peas.
So
Now,
good.
Most of us, I'm sure, know who the Black Eyed Peas are.
Yes.
I have never heard this song before.
I haven't either. I know them, but I didn't know this.
But again, it's a lot of hip hop and that kind of vibe for this summer, which is interesting. It is insightful in a way.
Yeah, just don't funk with my heart, dude.
Yeah, don't funk with it.
Yeah.
But
Begging
anyway,
you.
so please don't. And also, please don't cha, because number 2 is a song called "Don't Cha" by the Pussycat Dolls. Do you like that transition? That was nice.
That was smooth. That's what? That's why we're winning Evvies right there. Stuff like that.
But we can't bring up the Evvies in every single episode because then they're gonna hear it and then they're not gonna vote for us.
That's very true.
So to the Evvies, we love you very much.
Thank you.
And we can't wait to see you next year.
At
Anyway,
this ceremony,
at
where we're
the
gonna
ceremony,
win.
where we're gonna win. And then number 1 is a song called "We Belong Together" from Mariah Carey. I believe I've heard it.
Okay.
And Mariah Carey obviously is who she
Yeah,
is.
huge. But
And yeah, huge.
I
but
did
yeah.
not know this song. I didn't know any of them. I was stunned. I always assume I would know at least one.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. Which is totally fine.
I was furious.
Anyways, we can move right along into the plot of this film, which I am fresh off of.
You watched it like an hour ago.
I finished the movie, and then we immediately started talking to Ron, and then we immediately started recording the rest of the episode. So the opening of this film, we open with a beautiful introduction, really, of a town called Rivettown. Now, I believe there was something on the Wikipedia that basically said that the hometown of, like, it was either the director or the producer or something like that.
Or the writer.
Or the writer. It was based off of the town I think he, like, grew up in or something like that.
Oh, no way.
But it was later debunked. So that was, like, a whole big thing, apparently, and then he totally disbanded it in an interview.
Okay.
But it's really cool, because it's, like, again, it's the same thing with Hop, of, like, the factory, of, it's very fleshed out. Everyone, like, it's very clear that they have a grasp on this world. And the robots functioning in the world, and kind of how everything operates. And I love that. I love that in a movie. Any sort of world building, any sort of thing that kind of indicates they have a very strong, it's not just like, all right, it's just robots in, like, New York
there's
City.
a clear, like, vision and, like, world that they built for this. That's probably the movie's biggest strength, I think. It's just the universe of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so Herb, who is the father of the main character, busts out of a shop and exclaims that he is going to be a dad.
Yes.
And yeah, it's this whole big thing. It's very fun. It's very funny. That's where Jay Leno's character is.
It is? Oh, he's the fire hydrant.
Yeah, he's the fire
right?
hydrant. Yeah. He's like, congratulations, Herb. Or whatever it is. Or, congratulations, Herb. I can't do a Jay Leno, but
No, it's just the chin.
No.
You just gotta stick your chin out and you got it.
Yeah. Which now I kind of want to look at to see if they kind of designed it based off of
His face. I wish. I hope that's really true.
And then there's a funny bit in there that Herb missed the delivery, but the delivery is literally just they deliver a package with the things, and they build the baby because it's a robot. And I thought it was so funny because this movie, as Ron kind of mentioned, started off as a darker film, and it seemed, and maybe this is just me, but it seemed like there was a lot more adult humor in this, which I thought was interesting now, knowing that it was originally darker.
Yeah, you could see where this was kind of geared towards older audiences originally.
Yeah.
It's definitely changed since then, but get it, geared.
But I think one of the strong suits of this movie is the humor, and I think it was very funny. I really enjoyed some of the bits.
For the most part. Again, we'll get into it as we
progress. Sure. But just general note on, especially this opening scene with just like the little gag of he's a baby and they're building him and there's like sex jokes.
Yeah,
it's just funny.
They do a good job. I think the beginning's
it's charming.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rodney Copperbottom is born. That's our main character. And they raise Rodney, and he gets his big boy parts, which literally again is just like a box that comes in with parts.
Yeah, called big boy parts. Yeah.
Yep. And we kind of see he gets hand-me-downs for pretty much all of his youth and growing up. And eventually, Rodney and Herb are at a parade in the town, and they see a balloon of a robot called Big Weld. He's a robot who creates things and makes people's lives easier. He is big. Go ahead.
Yeah, like the whole movie when they're talking, it's Big Weld, right? With a
Big
D?
Weld, yeah.
Big Weld.
It's like a little pun.
Like welding, yeah. The whole movie, I'm like, it was such a Nick movie because I'm like, oh, Big Weld is just like Walt Disney.
Dude, I think that you just cracked something that I've been trying to figure out my whole life.
Really?
I think that's exactly it. Because I was like, what is drawing me to this movie
He's
so
Walt
much?
Disney.
And I just kept watching it. And maybe this movie's the reason why I have my passion for Disney, but wow, I don't know which one inspired the other. That's crazy. That's an incredible observation. But yes, he is like the big inspirational guy that's like, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. And he's open to these new ideas. And he's, I look up to him personally. I want him to be like my uncle. I love him.
Big Weld or Walt Disney?
Both.
Both.
I mean, aside from like the Nazi stuff.
Well, it's
But you know,
we don't need to talk about that.
it's just the good side of it.
Yeah, just the good side.
Yeah, just the good side. But anyways, Rodney finds out that his dad is a dishwasher, in a scene that kind of kind of emphasizes that his family doesn't have a lot of money. His dad's a dishwasher; they can't afford replacement parts or whatever, and that's just kind of world building for his family and kind of introducing us to his home. But ultimately, Rodney wants to meet Big Weld, and he kind of becomes obsessed with his TV show.
Yeah.
And he's inspired by it. He wants to become an inventor. He wants to change people's lives.
Just like you with
and
Disney.
I think exactly.
This is literally just
That's
you.
very sweet. This is. I think this is exactly why I resonate so fondly with this. So hard with this movie. Because I think Rodney is me. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just a Nick movie.
I'm like discovering so much about myself in this episode. This is insane.
He's gonna have an existential crisis on greenlit.
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, maybe we should cancel this episode.
No, this is incredible though. I need to rewatch this movie 100 times. No, but yeah, he. I think that what was the quote? It was see a need, fill a need, or something like that.
Find a need, fill a need, see a need, something like that.
See a need, fill a need. Yeah. It was something like that, but that's kind of Big Weld's quote.
Yeah,
and,
his big mantra.
Yeah. Yeah. So when Rodney graduates high school, he gets a job at the restaurant his dad works at. And the robot that he's kind of been working on and inventing to help his dad, do his job better because he's kind of breaking down. It kind of works wonders. It does exactly what it wants to do.
Actually, well, yeah. I was when that scene started, I thought it was gonna be a bit where he unleashes this robot to help do the dishes, and then he just causes a catastrophe, gets his dad fired. But no, the robot totally cleans all these dishes in 2 seconds. Yeah. It's actually kind of awesome. Cool. Yeah.
But then it kind of goes haywire, and he kind of breaks everything. And it's a little sad because now the family is in debt to the dude. I was writing my notes at the very end right before we jumped on. And I kept writing the family because it's like the Robin Williams family, like that family. Oh, and I kept writing the family because Robin's kind of introduced, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Another Fast and Furious family in this movie?" I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's just I know I'm gonna have to do the voice eventually.
It's the best ongoing bit of this entire show.
It really is.
The family.
The family. But so. Now the Rodney's family is in debt to the restaurant owner, which is very disappointing. So, and Rodney gets fired from this job that apparently he just started, and he wants to go to Robot City to make money to help pay back the owner of the restaurant for his dad because obviously he's not making enough, his mom's not making enough. But he also wants to go there and become an inventor and get his claim to fame and help people out. So he, his mom doesn't want him to leave, but his dad kind of gives him this inspiration to go follow his dreams and kind of tells him about a time when he wanted to follow his dreams and be a musician, but ended up not working out, and now he's a dishwasher.
Yeah.
But so he tells him, son, go do it. Go live it up.
Go do your thing.
Yeah. So he goes to Robot City with the ultimate goal of meeting Big Weld and inventing.
Yeah, a.k.a. New York City.
New York City, essentially.
Yeah, just straight up.
When he gets there, he meets a robot who I think was the whole reason I remember this movie to begin with. His name is Fender, and he is voiced by Robin Williams.
Which I did not know he was in this at all.
This when we said robots in the beginning, I heard Robin Williams speak to me. His voice is so it's not to compare it to Aladdin because that's not fair, but the two characters that are animated that are Robin Williams stick out so much to me in those movies.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the genie. Obviously, you can't separate Genie and the voice, and then Fender and also Robin Williams. So I was
'cause
like,
it
wow,
was-
this is
I didn't know he was in this at all. And when he
Mm-hmm.
came on screen, the first line, I think I paused it. I was like, the fuck is Robin Williams doing in this movie? I'm like, no way.
yeah. It's great, and we briefly talked about this, I think, off air, but I am curious. Obviously, Ron kind of spoke about the development, sort of the pre-production stage, but mostly development. But I am curious to see curious to know, I guess, how much of the dialogue was improvised by Robin Williams, because that's just what he does. He does a lot of improv,
and a lot
He's
of
a
it came
comedic
across
genius.
as like his
Exactly.
humor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and a lot of the bits were kind of generated from his character, which obviously that was the point of the character or whatever.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
He really adds to that a lot, and the fact that it was kind of written for him is
In
amazing.
mind, which
Yeah.
makes so much sense now watching
So
it.
much sense.
Yeah.
And again, the back of the hand joke, it stuck with me for whatever reason.
It's honestly one of those things where I had that thought. I was like, if this wasn't Robin Williams, I'd probably find this character really annoying. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think I would have liked him at all.
Depending on who you got, but for the most part, yes, I agree.
Because I think, again, knowing that the writing is tailored for Robin Williams, and like, thank God they cast him, he's now like my favorite.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it really could have gone either way, which I think is really interesting.
I could argue that Jim Carrey would have done a good job, but just because he is so
He's also
zany
kind of that
and
high
nuts.
energy, yeah.
But other than those two, I feel like you're absolutely right.
Yeah, there's very
it would've-
little people that can capture that.
Yeah,
very few
which is
people.
great that they got the person who they were writing for.
Yeah, which
I don't
rad.
feel like happens often.
I really doubt it.
I can't imagine.
Especially like the writer's not the director. Like he just passes off. He's like, okay, good luck, and then they just happen to see the same thing that he wrote.
Yeah.
That's pretty. That's pretty rare. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well
But anyway,
run.
so they go, so they meet Fender and Rodney, and they go on an extravagant ride through the city so that Rodney can get to Big World. It's this wild
Right.
travel
Yeah, it's
sequence,
like a
and it's
big roller
wonderful.
coaster.
It's very funny.
It's like a Disney roller coaster. I'm just saying.
Exact, dude. I am having an existential crisis right now, and I'm excited to revisit this in the future when I am sound with everything.
Yeah. Now that you know.
But anyways, this is so cool. This movie was designed for me. So he gets to the gate. Rodney gets to the gate of like the Big Whale like factory, and he sees the security robot from the show that he's obsessed
Yeah,
with.
the commercial.
Big Whale show, and the little security robot tricks Rodney into thinking he can get in. He does it once.
Mm-hmm.
He laughs. He's like, "Just kidding. I'll let you in." And then he does it again, and it's even funnier. It's amazing. But turns out Big World kind of got pushed out of the CEO position, and a new new robot. His name's Ratchet. He's like one of the main villains of this. He's kind of there to suck every last penny out of the common folk.
Yeah.
He's this sleek, shiny, new, buff
Yeah.
robot who is just like the epitome of a shitty CEO.
Like our most recent Bob with Disney.
Yeah, Mr. Chapek.
That's his
We
name.
don't
Thank
talk
you,
about
Bob
him.
Chapek.
But yeah, so and Ratchet comes up with this new slogan, which is "Why be you when you can be new," which is again super nostalgic because I just remembered that quote.
Okay.
It kind of stuck with me, but it kind of uses it to get regular robots to buy upgrades even when it's unnecessary.
Yeah,
so like
instead of
when they
new
just
parts.
need like a part or two to fix themselves, they're forced to buy a whole new upgrade, which costs apparently like way more, and he's doing it
Yeah.
because he literally is the most evil thing on the planet. I just want to make a side note. He genuinely hates poor people. He hates them.
Yeah, that's not an exaggeration.
them.
Like he says
No.
it in the movie.
Yeah, he's like, poor people are, I hate them. I will step on them. They're
He
the
literally
worst."
he literally has machines that just kill poor people. That's
Yeah.
part of the movie.
Yeah, and they take them to an underground like scrap metal thing that's run by
Yeah,
his
it's
mom.
terrifying.
It's so terrifying.
Which is probably what Bob Chapek would do if he could.
Yeah. But so Rodney he uses his little Wonderbot, the little robot that helped his dad that failed. But now he's like his friend. But so he uses Wonderbot to try and sneak into Big Walt's office, and he breaks in, and he gets immediately kicked out after finding out the truth about the company. So he realizes, oh my god, Big Walt is gone, and now it's taken over by this piece of shit. Oh god, and then they kick him out because they hate him.
They hate the poor.
They hate the poor. So we find out that Ratchet isn't going to be making spare parts anymore. And we get introduced to Ratchet's mom, who basically, she runs an underground scrap metal business, and she is the true big bad. She is the one that's kind of like, hey, stop being a bitch and like go be the worst,
go be
like
evil.
I am. Yeah.
She's almost like she's like the emperor.
Exactly.
And like
She's
Ratchet's
pulling
like
all
Darth
the
Vader.
strings.
Yeah.
She's killing all the people down under, and her son is kind of just getting everyone.
Yeah, if you think about it, and this has happened quite a few times, there's a lot of murder in this.
Absolutely. This happens, I feel like, in a lot of animated movies. They kind of gloss over how much murder there actually is.
I know. It's kind of horrifying. This city is terrifying.
Yeah.
Like if you have one thing wrong with you, they just kill you on the spot. Like, it's freaky.
And she loves doing it too. She's like, I hope everyone dies.
Yeah,
I want to take over.
She loves it too much.
Yeah.
Well, again, like Ron said, you can kind of tell this was a little darker because this is really fucked up.
Yeah, which I love.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. But yeah, so they conspire to make what they call Ratchet City instead of Robot City, because they want it to be, theirs, and make everything shiny and new. They don't want any poor people. They hate them. They're the scum of the earth.
All poor gone.
And also, just a side note, this scene where the mom is kind of introduced with like the song, and they're kind of just like, like grinding the metal. Yeah. And, building stuff. And then she's like, yeah, here's your break. And then immediately, break's over.
Break's over.
And that scene gave me, like, such nightmares as a kid.
Did it really?
I was so scared of her. Like,
no
it was
shit.
unbelievable. Yeah, I would always watch this movie, and then on the little portable TV, I would just skip over that like 45 seconds.
So you wouldn't even watch it?
Never. I watched it once and I had
wild.
nightmares for like months, and then just never watched it again. I was like, I'll watch the rest. And it was so scary.
And you told me you were scared. This was like what, 12, 13 days ago, where you watched this and you were freaked out.
Yeah. No, I was sitting here today. And
you skipped it.
Oh, I did not watch it. No, I'm kidding. But I did when I was rewatching. I was like, yeah, I do remember why I was so scared of it.
Yeah,
it is
freaky. Yeah, they do a good job. Also,
but yeah,
I think this is. I don't remember what movie, but I think this had happened before. Is this the only like song? Because it's not a musical. This movie at all.
I think so. They have like a little dance sequence at the end.
True.
And they have like a couple of montages, but not like
characters singing. Yeah, never. No training sequences.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, which always kind of catches me off guard a little bit. Like they start singing, I'm like, oh, why is this happening?
Yeah. You
know what I mean?
Because it's like, right. Like isn't that why you don't like musicals in general?
A little bit.
Because it's always, it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I get that though. Like I love musicals, but I totally get where it's like, oh, you have this like riveting, dramatic scene, and then someone walks off stage, and then you're left with one person, and they start like belting about something.
Yeah, I'm like, what the
else?
fuck?
And you're like, what's going on?
Okay, let me explain my weird musical thing.
Sure.
I like musicals when I go to a theater to watch it.
Yeah.
But if it's like a movie musical or it's like a TV show and they do a musical episode, I can't fucking stand it. I hate it so much. Because you're right. It's just like I'm watching a normal plot, and all of a sudden, these out of nowhere they just start singing. I'm like, I'm like, what's going on?
Dude, I used to with some friends in high school. At first, it was like I was like, all right, I'm gonna give this show a chance, and then I just started hate watching it because I hated it.
Okay.
But I watched Riverdale, and it was terrible.
Awful.
But anyways, they have, I think every season they like purposefully do like a musical.
Yeah, I've watched one of them.
Yeah. And those ones especially, I think, are my least favorite.
Yeah, I watched the Heathers
Those ones are
one.
insane.
Dude, horrendous.
So crazy.
Like,
It's also just like that show plus musical is going to automatically equal disaster.
Yeah, that's true.
And that, like, doesn't that work or whatever.
Actually, I meant to tell you, next week our guest is the writer of Riverdale, everyone.
Oh my god, no.
Bring him out.
Just dunk on him or her or they, whoever.
Everyone. Whole
all
writer's
of
room.
them. Every single one. Anyways, back to robots. So Rodney meets Fender's family. Here we go,
The
baby.
family. And so it begins.
And so it begins. And Rodney fixes Fender's neck after the guy who sells parts told the family essentially they're scrap and they should be sent to the chop shop.
Yeah,
which
they're
is
all out of
Ratchet's
parts. No more
mom's
parts.
Place. Yeah. And so he can't fix himself, so Rodney fixes his neck.
Yes.
And they run into what's called a sweeper, which basically kind of roams through the city, picks up any poor people
Kills them.
that happen to get in the way, kills them, and uses them for scrap. That's
Yep.
basically the whole purpose.
What's the problem? What do you mean?
Exactly. So they evade one of those. We kind of learn about what it is, and then we make it to Aunt Fanny's house. Now, the Aunt Fanny scene was also another thing that I remember vividly. And obviously because of the butt joke and the big fart and all the stupid kid stuff that I love.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, and I think because of I have the nostalgia behind those jokes, they hit. But rewatching it, I was kind of like, okay,
Yep.
you know.
Well, remember when I
It's-
said like 20 minutes ago,
Yeah.
some of the humor hit and some didn't?
Sure.
This is where it kind of fell apart a little bit.
That makes sense. But again,
Yeah.
all the Robin Williams stuff, like, and that's most of the movie, I think is fucking perfect. And then this I think a little bit, but again, I have like the nostalgia for it, so I'm like, oh, okay,
That's
yeah,
fair. Yeah,
there
someone
we go.
who doesn't
Hell yeah.
have the nostalgia for the movie, I was like, oh. I'm like,
It kind of drags.
Yeah, I pulled a young Nick and I almost was like, can we just skip this?
Yeah.
I was scared of this.
There you go. But yeah, so Fender and Rodney have such a sweet little heartfelt moment.
In their hammocks?
Yep, in their hammocks, which are tires, I'm pretty sure. And then they do like a little like sweet little like bonding moment armpit fart because there's like a joke about how it's like metal because they're metal, it's like harder to do.
It's hard to do.
And then everyone in the house does their own version, and then Aunt Fanny like destroys the town.
Yeah, just like nukes the town.
I always like whenever I heard that as a kid, I just started dying laughing because the whole thing like rumbles, and then the street lamp like dies.
Yeah, he dies.
And then the transition is like the next morning. There's like a white outline of his dead body.
I will
It's
say,
so
I
great.
like that. All the fart stuff, I was like, yeah, whatever. But
Sure.
the fact she killed someone, I'm like, all right, I'm back in.
Murdering
I'm back in. Yeah.
He was like, seek help, a lady. Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. But anyway, so the next morning, the town is rioting because they can't afford upgrades, right?
Yep.
They just need parts, and they can't afford these millions of dollars, however much in robot currency, these massive upgrades for their whole body. And Rodney is like, hey, see a need, fill a need. I'm going to fix the whole town. So he has a fun little montage where he fixes everyone, and they all love him.
But again, it's not a training montage.
No, not a training
that
montage.
out.
Ron
Yeah.
would never let that happen.
Never.
Because those are no bueno. But so then the big bads, the mom and Ratchet, devise a plan to stop, and I think they say literally crush, like literally
crush. Yeah.
whoever is fixing the bots, which obviously is Rodney.
Yeah.
And eventually, Rodney and Fender sneak into Big World's party because they're like, hey, we need the big guy in the high heavens.
Big man.
We need him to come back, and we need him to take back his throne, and we need him to bring it back to the way it used to be, where everyone could invent.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, turns out Big World isn't there, and Ratchet is the host of the party. And he
Where's Disney?
chases exactly.
I
It's
mean,
crazy.
Big Weld.
Yeah, it's like if Disney hosted it was like the 10th annual Disney party, and then like Walt is supposed to be there, and then Bob Chapek shows up. I would have the same reaction. I'd be like, what the hell?
Yeah. Walt can't
What's wrong
make
with
it.
you? But yeah, so Ratchet and his crew kind of chase Rodney and Fender out of the party, and Fender gets taken by a sweeper while singing in the oil because he meets a lovely little lady, and he does like a recreation of Singing in the Rain, and he gets taken by a sweeper. And then I think, Rodney gets helped by like the girl robot who Ratchet is like in love with.
Yeah, Ratchet has a really
like that.
creepy thing for her.
Yeah, her name's Cappy, and Cappy, after the escape, takes Rodney to Bigwell's workshop, and Rodney finally, after this whole time, meets his hero, and he tries to convince him to help the city.
Yeah, and now his introduction is really strange. Because do you remember the weird surfing thing?
Yeah.
Oh, you just watched like an hour ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he
this
has
is like
this,
fresh in my mind.
It's so strange. So I don't even know if you caught this, but he enters the room, and Bigwell's not there, and he's like, "What's going on?" And he pushes like this domino, and then it creates this ginormous domino wave. Like the whole room is filled with dominoes, and then you literally see Bigwell surfing the dominoes. But for whatever reason, like the actual wall and sky of the room just totally change. And it looks like they're outside, and I was like, I don't know what's going on anymore. Like, I feel like I skipped a scene, and then the dominoes end, and they're just right back in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I just had a stroke and missed a whole movie.
You want to know what it is?
What? Yeah, what happened?
It's just Bigwell's adventure. You don't know. It's just his invention. That's all it is.
He's just super smart, man. Like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm in the wrong.
God. But yeah, so Bigwell is kind of like the grumpy. He's like Big Z. He's like, I'm not helping you.
I literally thought you meant my film teacher for a second.
No,
I was like,
I know. I saw it in your face.
Yeah.
I saw it in your face.
I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah, he's literally like Big Z.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to help you. What the hell's wrong with you? I'm retired. I'm in hiding. And so Rodney's like, oh, phooey. I guess I have to leave and give up. And so he's about to leave on the train. And then the family convinces him to save the day. And they all kind of come together. And Big Weld, he joins. He's like, you know what?
Comes back.
C&E Filony, you're my guy. I'm inspired by you. And so Big Weld, being who he is, he busts into his own office, fires Ratchet, and then Ratchet is like, hell no, and he knocks him out.
Tries to kill him.
Exactly. And then there's this big chase sequence, and then to kind of make a long story short, there's this gigantic, chase sequence. The big bads are trying to kill the good guys trying to kill the bad guys.
Yeah, big fight,
Yeah. And then they kind of crash at the chop shop, and they're like, oh God, we're gonna die. And then
this is the end.
I forget who it is, but someone's like, we're fighting. And so they gear up, and they go to fight the mom and Ratchet and their army. They have like this massive army, both of them. Because I think
a bit silly.
Fender's sister shows up with like all the robots that are newly repaired, and they all fight.
Yeah, now about the armies, is I remember when that happened, it was the first time I caught it. And I was like, I wonder if this is kind of becoming a cliche with these movies.
Yeah.
I saw it, and to be fair, these movies were way later, but I saw it in Endgame, I saw it in, like, Rise of Skywalker, is the heroes are always down on their luck, they're about to lose, and then sometimes out of nowhere, or sometimes they do set it up, a whole army comes in. And this keeps happening. So when all of a sudden the door fell and there's all these robots, I'm like, I think this is becoming a cliche at this point.
It has
it's
been
getting
for
there.
a while, and it's one of those things where I've just been noticing it a lot more since college, just because I've just watched a lot more movies. And maybe it's less noticeable for a person who isn't like us and going to see movies all the time, but who knows?
True. To be fair, when I saw an Endgame, I was like, oh, that's really smart.
Yeah.
And then since then, I've seen it come up a lot.
Over and over and over.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, they battle, they defeat Ratchet, they defeat the mom, whatever. And then Ratchet ends up hanging in the same rafter with his dad, which we didn't really touch on. But in the beginning, like, his dad is hanging up there, and he's, I guess, was like poor and didn't want to like be a villain. So his mom just kind of like hung him there. He's like, "Hi, kid." Hi, buddy.
Just so strange.
And then he's hanging up with his dad. He's like up in the chains with his dad, and he lost all his upgrades. And his dad's like, well, you can still make a difference up here. And he's like very sweet. I'm man.
It's really, I'm not sure how he ended up with her, but he's really nice.
Yeah. The thing about that is freaks me out.
Bizarre.
Yeah. But yeah, so Rodney like goes, basically Big World is like, we're going to finish this, right? And then he's like, no, I got to do something first. So he goes home, Rodney, and he gives his dad the chance to be the musician he always wanted to, which is a very sweet, very heartfelt
it's very
moment.
nice.
And Big World is there. He announces to everyone, but specifically to Rodney's parents, that Rodney is his successor. So like he did it. He is successful. He's making money. He's now an inventor, and that's great. All is well in the world, and we end with a giant dance party.
And did you catch one of the songs in the dance party?
Gotta be honest, didn't make it all the way through that because I was short on time.
Okay, I was so stunned because I never thought this would happen in the history of this show. But for about 5 seconds, they play "Hit Me Baby One More Time" by Britney Spears. And I'm like, are you telling me this is the second time that this song has been featured on our show?
Yeah.
Because it was also in The Boy Who Cried Werewolf.
Right, I remember
famous
that.
lost episode.
Yeah.
Dude, Britney's made 2 appearances.
I hope she's a reoccurring.
It keeps coming up. What's a season of a Britney Spears song?
We need a Robert Rodriguez movie with a Britney Spears song.
Dude, don't speak that into existence. Because now it's gonna happen.
And then Ron writes the movie.
I think
it's just like our little cinematic universe.
If Ron writes a movie that Robert Rodriguez directs with a Britney Spears song, we have to retire on that episode.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
how we
that
end
should
this
be
show.
Our final episode.
Yeah.
The show will never end now.
We have to wait. We just gotta wait for that movie.
Yeah, that's wild. That'd be crazy. Anyways, going into final thoughts. I guess I can start just because this has been a very
Nick movie.
Nick discovering himself movie. No, I rewatched it, having seen it 100 million times, whatever, and I was like, oh man, this is the first time where I was genuinely like nervous to watch it because I was like, I don't want the nostalgia to go away because I loved it so much, and I loved some of the movies I saw as a kid that we've covered.
Yeah,
but this one in particular, I was like, oh,
this is a big one.
I'm terrified.
Yeah,
Rewatching
that was like me with Chicken Little.
Yeah, rewatching it, surprisingly enough, I found more things to love about it. Like
Really?
I really liked the rewatch. Yeah, I was nervous, but I came away happy. I really liked the humor. I obviously love Fender as a character. The voice acting was great. I don't know if we mentioned this, but Big Weld is voiced by Mel Brooks. That's pretty cool.
He is.
Anyways, I like the humor. I like the pacing. I thought the villains were compelling. I thought Big Weld was a great character. I just really overall I loved it. This might be my new top.
No way.
It might
That's
be.
wild.
And I was worried for a while that it wasn't gonna crack even the top 5 because I was like, what if I rewatch it and I hate it? But I rewatched and I really, really came away loving it.
That's crazy.
So
I'll say for me, it does not crack the top 5.
Fair.
Because I thought it was just okay.
That's fine.
I think, I to be fair, I went into this hoping I'd really like it because we were talking to the writer and kind of being scared I wouldn't. So it's not that I disliked it. It's definitely not one of the strongest ones I think has been on this show.
That's
I think I think the timing of it kind of hurt because we just did Surf's Up last week. And if you think about the plot of both, one, I did really like Surf's Up, but 2, they're almost identical.
Yeah.
Like, we have a guy who is very good at certain tasks from like a small little village, goes to the big thing to impress people. His mentor is no longer around. Eventually finds the mentor, takes him under his wing. He fixes the mentor fixes him, and they get rid of the big guy, and the mentor comes back to the public light. It's almost the same exact plot.
Yeah.
So I was watching it, I was like, oh, I've just seen this, and I just kind of saw it better. So that kind of hurt it, and then the other one that you didn't bring up, so maybe it was just me, but I found that in the beginning, one, I think the movie actually really works up until he gets kicked out of the Big Weld building.
Sure.
from there on out, for me, it kind of went downhill. It almost like lost its footing for me a bit. But I think all the stuff in, I'm just going to call it New York City. All the stuff in New York City, I think, again, this is such a personal thing, but the robots are so intricately designed, and the designs are really good. I think they're beautiful. But when there's a lot of them on the screen at once, because it is a city, it can be really hard to look at.
That's fair. Yeah, it is contrasting.
Yeah, it was almost like too
little
much.
bit, yeah.
I like, to be honest, by the end of it, I almost had like a headache. I was like, I gotta look away from this thing.
That's
So
fair.
yeah, so visually, it kind of hurt a little bit. It looked really good. Like, it wasn't anything wrong with the animation, but I think it was too much. And I pretty much just watched this movie last week, but with penguins and
Sure.
surfing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was
So-
going to say, especially for 2005, and knowing now that, I guess that kind of started in 99,
Yeah.
the animation's beautiful.
It's
for
it's
what
really
it's worth,
held up.
It's very
yeah,
it's stunning.
I was really
but
surprised actually how good it looked.
And especially for the second movie for Blue Sky.
Yeah,
It's-
right?
It's really impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
also
it's-
Ice Age is their first one. That's also very
Dude,
impressive.
they came out of the gate swinging.
Yeah.
Like, that's really
Also,
cool.
Ice Age we got to cover in the future
Oh, it's on the list.
for sure. It's
Ice
on the
Age is
list.
coming.
But yeah. Anyways, one final thought about robots.
We're gonna do
on this
one word at a
wonderful
time?
Episode. Surprisingly enough, off the record,
Yeah.
last time it lined up pretty well.
Did it really?
Yeah.
All right, let's
well
line it
enough.
up. Yeah.
I can't
believe this got greenlit.
I can cut around it if it doesn't work.
It's fine. And now we know how it got greenlit.
Exactly. Now we
We
know.
actually
Now
know.
We actually know for the first time and probably the last. Hopefully not the last, because Robert Rodriguez, you're next. I'm
we're
calling my
getting them.
shots.
We're getting them.
So we're very excited to announce. At least I am, because this movie is insane, and I'm so curious. 'Cause we're coming out of the gate, in my opinion, with 2 banger episodes and also movies for the summer sessions.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that we're gonna go back into that Shark Boy Lava Girl Cat in the Hat era of
I keep waiting
shit,
for it.
with the next movie that we're covering, because next week we are covering the one, the only, the Lion King. Wait for it. 1.5.
And a half.
Not the Lion King 1.
Nope.
Not the original, not the godforsaken, wonderful movie. The Lion King 1.5. So I'm worried because I remember vividly this movie. And we'll get into that next week.
Yeah, I won't spoil anything.
But I'm worried about it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, you know what? I can't say anything because I don't want to
Yes.
give away any childhood stories or anything.
Yes.
But next week is Lion
Okay.
King 1.5. And I'm also nervous.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you all for listening. Tune in next week for Lion King 1.5. Thank you again to Ron for the wonderful conversation.
Yeah, legend.
And providing us with some incredible insight into this wonderful movie.
This
we'll
okay
see you
movie.
next week.
All right, we'll see you at Lion King 1.5.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.